I'm Owen Bigland. This is the Inside Edge video blog. There was an interesting article in Barron's magazine I read a couple of weekends ago, and it was also picked up in CNBC and on another website called Seeking Alpha that I use, investor website. It was entitled The 7 Signs That You're on Your Way to Becoming a Millionaire. And this 7 signs are nothing new. I've blogged about something similar to this over the years. There's been a lot of these, the common traits of successful people, the things that are the habits that multimillionaires all have in common. So there's been variations of this. But this one was a real straightforward one that I wanted to share with you guys, with all my viewers, no matter what your age. If you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s, it's never too late. If you're not picking up these traits or using these habits, you should start. And the reason I like this one so much is because all 7 of these I was doing when I was in my late teens, early 20s. I never had 7 traits that somebody gave me. These were just things that I naturally picked up from some of my mentors, my father, and people that I was working with at the time. People I was associating myself with all had these things, and they were just kind of, you just absorb them naturally. Now when I look back on when I see these 7 traits or 7 habits that millionaires possess, it kind of clicks home for me. Because if you've read my book, and I don't want to brag about it, but yeah, I became a multimillionaire by the time I was in my mid-40s. And all of these things I did, so I can tell you that they work. So here they are. And some of them, you're going to see here, I've talked about many times over the last 6 or 7 years on my blog. Here is the secret. Right here, I'm going to give it to you. These 7 steps, if you can follow them, or these 7 traits or habits, get comfortable with them, doing them, especially the younger you start, the easier, you will become a millionaire if that's what you want to do. Money's not everything. I talk about it in my book, but the results of doing these things, you will have all the money you're ever going to need. Here they are. Successful people, millionaires, all have multiple revenue streams. This is so key. This is what I talk about in my book, Along for the Ride. It's what it's all about. It's about earning passive income. So with me, I've always had multiple revenue streams since I was a teenager. I had all kinds of odd jobs, multiple jobs, from lawn mowing, caddying at the golf course, paper routes, you name it. But as I got older and finished school, again, I've always had multiple revenue streams. For me right now, being a working realtor is one of my revenue streams. The downside to being a working realtor, though, is I've got to get up every morning at 4:30 and go to bed at 9 o'clock, and I'm working for the money. I love doing it, and it brings me, I'm paid well for it, but that is one of my main revenue streams, but it's active. The other revenue streams for me are my investment properties. I've got rental properties, and I have tenants sending me rent checks or depositing rent checks into my bank account every month. The nice thing with those is, for the most part, they're not completely passive. I have to do some work and some managing on my properties, not as much work as people think, but it's mostly a passive income source. The third and large one that I have is my investment portfolio, my equity or my stock portfolio. Every single week I'm getting dividend checks, fat dividend checks in some cases, from the companies that I hold. Every month my cash account is being flooded with dividend checks from companies like Bell Canada, TD, Royal Bank, Apple, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, Pfizer, Home Depot, Visa, McCormick. These are the companies that I own. All of them are large blue chip stocks with incredible amounts of cash flow that every quarter, every 3 months, pay me a dividend check. And that's the secret to what you're investing in. This doesn't mean you're investing in marijuana stocks or Tesla. They do not pay you to own them. And that's the big difference between investing and speculating. And I've talked about that so many times. So that's a third source of revenue. I also have other sources of revenue. I have got other small ventures that I'm involved in where I'm an investor. I've even got money coming in from my YouTube channel here and my book, even though it's not huge amounts and I don't do it for the money. But it's another source of revenue that I get a check every month for. So multiple streams of revenue, and this is something that all the investor clients that I work with a lot of successful people, but I also work with people that are just starting out. First-time home buyers, young people, I like working with all of them. They've all got something I can learn from them. And hopefully they can learn some things from me. But the higher end clients that I have, the ones that own pretty impressive real estate and business portfolios, they all have multiple revenue streams just like I did. Second thing, they save to invest. I blogged about this before. When I started when I was young, I was probably saving 40%, 50% of everything I earned when I was still living at home. And that's the time when you can really do some serious damage into your savings. When you're at home with mom and dad paying most of the bills, you can work multiple jobs, work side hustles, whatever you have to do, and try and save as much as you can. But you should be trying to save at least 20%. Every dollar you earn, 20% should be being invested. And that investing should be going into investments that are going to pay you to hold them. Real estate and stocks are two of the best ways. Third thing, they're decisive. I did a blog on this 2 or 3 years ago, how successful people make decisions quickly and change their minds slowly. Most people, I told you back then, have this in reverse. Most people think they make decisions slowly and change your mind quickly. And that's not the way it works. Unfortunately, that's the way that most people think. It doesn't mean, when I say you make decisions quickly and you're decisive, it doesn't mean you just go out and buy something, buy a stock, buy a condo. You do your homework going in. And I go back to the blogs I was doing on this. For me, for instance, when I'm ready to add an investment property in my portfolio, or I'm working with a client who wants to buy an investment property. We settle on a budget, where we want to buy, etc. Then we're going to keep an eye on a number of buildings, our wish list buildings. We might have to wait a month, might have to wait 2 months, we might only have to wait a few days. We're keeping an eye on certain buildings that when the right unit comes up, the right 1 bedroom or whatever we're in the market for, in the right building, we can pounce on it. We can write an offer that day if the realtor will take it. If not, we might have to wait next week until offer night, and then we'll write the offer. So that's how I work. When I'm ready to buy another unit, I'll decide on what neighborhood I want to add it to. I will put together a short list of buildings that I want to buy into. I know the buildings, I know the stratas. When the right unit hits, I'm ready to pounce on it. I've got all my ducks in a row. My financing is there. I can write subject free. Boom. That's the way all my successful buyers work as well. And I change my mind slowly. So I've had many times, I've talked about it, where I bought an investment condo, paid $500,000 for it. A year and a half later, it's worth $475,000. Do I panic and sell? No. I've got a tenant in it. They're paying me a rent check every month. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm an investor. So I don't change my mind. Once I make my decision and buy, end of story. And that's the way all my good or successful clients work. It's the way you should work as well. You have specific goals for your money. Again, you set your goal. I want to buy an investment property. I want to have a second property at 45. I want to have a third one at age 50. I want to start producing maybe half my total income passively by the time I hit 50. Those are all goals you want to set for yourself. I've never been one to write down goals. Some people do. They put things up on bulletin boards and write down the goals. Everyone works differently. Myself, I just have a running dialogue in my mind on where I want to go. At the end of every year, I kind of will take a couple of hours on a beach in Hawaii and reflect on the year I had. And for me, I'm always looking to improve myself in a variety of ways. And sometimes in a year, it doesn't mean it has anything to do with money. We've had many years in the stock market where my portfolio was worth less than what it was the previous year. It's the same thing with my investment, my real estate holdings. We've had down years where my real estate is worth less than at the beginning of the year. Now, that doesn't sound too successful, but I know that's the way markets go. It'll recover. Other ways, though, I look as far as my business. How many deals did I do in the year? How many ends did I do? How did I improve my marketing to make the experience better for my clients? What kind of workouts and fitness regimen did I have? As long as at the end of the year I feel I've gotten better in some ways, it doesn't have to always be the balance in my portfolio, then I'm working towards that, and that's the way I always look at it. They prefer books over entertainment. And again, sounds familiar. I've blogged many times about how I try and read at least one book a month, more in the summertime if I have a little more time. It all depends on my schedule. I suggest you guys do the same thing. I'm always reading books on investing, on real estate, on business. I like autobiographies. I like to read stories about other successful people and some of the traits that you can pick up from them. Always be learning, always be trying to get better. You surround yourself with other high-achieving people. Another one that sounds familiar. This is one that I've been harping on to people now, if you've been watching my blog for a while, about who you're taking your advice from and who you're listening to. And this is the one I think that brings most people down. In this day of social media, with the internet, anybody with a camera can start posting videos on YouTube from their parents' basement. And unfortunately, because I get emails from people all the time in the comments in my YouTube blog, they'll send me links to some other site or some guy who's talking about Vancouver real estate's going to crash. You need to start filtering who you're listening to. Who are these people? What kind of transparency do they have? You know, I talk a lot about it in my book. I only follow successful people with transparency, and you should too. Why else would you waste your time with some guy who's doing blogs in your parents' basement? So be careful on who you're getting your advice from. I aligned myself at a very young age with people who had been there and done that, and people that were both in real estate and investing. In many cases, you'd be surprised if you reach out to some of these people, they'll give you 10 or 15 minutes. You should try it. But align yourself with successful people, positive people. I mean, some of the stuff I see out there right now in Vancouver real estate, there's a couple of these bloggers, my God. I mean, they've got an agenda. You can tell. They're mad, they're angry, they've been priced out of the market, and I can understand their frustration. I really can. But complaining about it and then trying to cherry pick information that makes it look like this market's overpriced and it's going to crash and all hope is lost and we need the government to help us out. Aligning yourself with that type of message is just it's not going to take you anywhere. You're going to end up like this guy doing the blog. Life is like that. There are people that work hard and move forward and rise above the challenges, because there's always going to be challenges. So you can align yourself with winners, or as Tom Vu used to say, there are doers and there's don'ters. In my opinion, I'm only aligning myself with doers. I always have. Everything from the people that have helped me and mentored who I've worked with, even in my downtime as an athlete working out in the gym, I'm hanging out with other positive, successful, driven people that want to get ahead. All the people I work with in my business, whether I'm selling their property or I'm working with them to buy a property, they're all the same. We all connect in that same magnetic level. You know, I'm attracting positive people. For the life of me, why are you going? And these guys that are negative, they're not ever going to work with me, and I don't want to work with you. It's as simple as that. I have no interest in working with negative people. I'm only working with people that want to move forward. They're going to make things work. They're going to buy their first principal residence. They're going to start with something in the suburbs out in Richmond and then work their way up to Vancouver, then buy an investment property. It's being done all the time. These people that complain that they're so hard done by and that young people are falling behind, I know there's some of that, but I'm working with these buyers every month, so I know many people are striving and moving forward and others are falling behind. That's just the way life is. There's the doers and there's the don'ters. You have to decide which side of the tracks you want to be on. It's as simple as that. That's what life is about. Finally, they think big, they set goals, they strive to reach those goals. This has all been around for 100 years, folks. Nothing has changed. You set the goals. In this day and age, if you're a young person watching my blog here and you want to buy your first property, you're probably not going to be able to get into a $700,000 condo in Yaletown. But hey, I've got good condos in Richmond on SkyTrain, older wood frame that you can get for $325, $330 all day. You can fix it up a little bit. live in it, keep saving your money, and we'll move you up the ladder. That's how it works. Or keep it and rent it out and buy a second property. But it's not going to be easy. You're going to have to work your 9-to-5 job. You're going to have to try and keep improving yourself. That means getting better at what your occupation is so you can move up to the higher income levels. And I would suggest for a lot of people, especially now when you're young, start working some side hustles, working multiple jobs, work a job on the weekend, whatever it takes to bank enough money to get that down payment together. Because I've blogged about this so many times, the hurdle for everyone is getting the down payment. Getting that $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to buy your first one bedroom. Because once you get the down payment in place, the cost to support the mortgage, pay your property taxes and your maintenance fees are going to be not much more than what you're paying right now for rent. But the wall you've got to jump is getting that $50,000 or $60,000. So I would hook or crook, try and get that 50 or 60, whatever it takes. I would set a 2-year goal or a 3-year goal to save it. And you can do it. I see it every month in my business. I've got people calling me that have told me they've been at it for 2 or 3 years. They've got their down payment. They're pre-qualified. We're going to get them into their first place. So those are the 7 signs. If you're doing, not all of them, but if you're kind of following most of those things, you're well on your way to becoming a millionaire down the road, if that's what you want to be. It doesn't have to be that way, but I'm just pointing this out to people. These are the traits that millionaires, including myself, have always followed from a young age. And you can too. As always, I'm Owen Bigland. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do. I'll see you next week.